The mind is a powerful weapon. Psions can use innate mental powers to gain extraordinary abilities and unleash the magic of their mind. There is a new intelligence based spellcaster that was just announced in the current Unearthed Arcana. This is the first class announced since the Artificer years ago, and it came with four subclasses. So, like many spellcasters, your hit dice aren't going to be great. A d6 per scion level. You get proficiency with intelligence and wisdom saving throws. You're proficient with simple weapons and you don't have armor proficiency. Before we get too much farther into the video, I wanted to tell you I'm trying to quickly turn around this video. This got announced yesterday, from what I can tell. I want to get it out tomorrow morning, so I'm recording this on a Wednesday. That means there's not going to be much editing. I've been trying to add more pictures and some like GIFs and stuff to my content recently. But in order to get this video out in time and to get it recorded before I go into work today, I'm not going to do as much editing. So, continuing on. You get the choice of two Scion cantrips and four prepared spells with two slots at level 1. When you cast a Scion spell, the spell doesn't require a verbal or material component, except material components that are consumed by the spell or have a cost specified in the spell. That is incredible. Um, Not requiring verbal components alone is really good. A lot of tables kind of ignore material components unless they're expensive. So, like diamonds for revivify and stuff like that. But not requiring a verbal component means that you can cast spells in silence and you can cast spells when you are when your mouth is restrained and stuff like that. You get psionic energy dice at level 1. Psionic has been a hard word for me today. These are used to enhance or fuel certain features. You regain 1 per short rest, or all dice when you take a long rest. You start with 2 features: telekinetic propel or telepathic connection, or and telepathic connection. Telekinetic propel allows you to, as a bonus action, choose a large or smaller creature other than you that you can see within 30 feet of yourself, and then roll one psionic energy die. The target must succeed on a strength saving throw or be pushed or pulled, your choice, up to a number of feet straight away from yourself equal to 5 times the number rolled. This die is only expended if the target fails the saving throw, which is great. Telepathic connection gives you telepathy within 5 feet. As a bonus action, you can expend a psionic energy die and roll it for a number of minutes equal to your psion level. The range of your telepathy extends by a number of feet equal to 10 times the number rolled. This is really nice. It is odd that the telepathy only has a range of 5 feet, because, this is the telepathic class. There is a telepathy subclass called the telepath, but hopefully they get better abilities than that. At level 1, you also know the mage hand cantrip. You can cast this without somatic components and to make the hand invisible when you cast it. So that's really good. Not needing somatic components makes it a lot easier to cast stealthily. The hand being invisible is always great. This is also a feature with the Arcane Trickster, and it makes Mage Hand go from a decent cantrip that has uses but isn't great for stealth sometimes if the person notices the Mage Hand, to an amazing cantrip that is just overall useful in a lot of different situations. At level 2, you learn more psionic techniques fueled by your psionic energy dice and can gain 2 disciplines. A discipline is pretty much just an ability that you get. You can use only 1 discipline each turn and only once per turn unless otherwise noted in one of those options. Whenever you gain a psionic level, you can replace one of your disciplines with one you don't know. We're not going to spend a lot of time on disciplines because there's a decent number of them in here, and I don't want this to be an insanely long video. but there are just a decent number of them, and I can at least go through the names, but we're not going to spend time on it. So biofeedback, destructive thoughts, devilish tongue, ego whip, expanded awareness, ID insinuation, inerrant aim. I hope I said that right. Psionic backlash, psionic guards, swift precognition, and tactical mind. Decent number of options for this new feature. At level 2, you can, as a bonus action, choose attack mode or defense mode, giving you benefits for 1 minute or until you use the feature again. You gain use of this feature twice and regain all uses after a long rest. Attack mode allows damage from weapon attacks, psion spells, and features to ignore resistances to psychic damage. You can also expend one psionic energy die to reroll a number of damage dice up to your intelligence modifier after rolling damage for a spell. You must use the new rolls. So this is really good. So first off, ignoring resistance to psychic damage is great because this class pretty heavily relies on psychic damage. And then expending your energy die to reroll a number of damage dice up to your intelligence modifier can be really good, depending on how big your intelligence modifier is. Defense mode gives you resistance to psychic damage. In addition, when you fail an intelligence, wisdom, or charisma save, you can take a reaction to expend one psionic energy die. You can reroll the die and add the number rolled, or you can roll the die and add the number rolled to the save. So, getting resistance to psychic damage is really good against some enemies. So, like if you're fighting a mind flayer or something, it would probably be good to have resistance to psychic damage. And then being able to add a psionic energy die to an intelligence, wisdom, or charisma save that you failed is also really good. That just gives you a little bit more protection against some spells that could deal a lot of damage. And then you gain your subclass at level 3. The options are the Metamorph, Psywarper, Psykinetic, and Telepath. We're not going to spend an insanely long time on these because, like I said, um, this would be a super long video. But the Metamorph, your own flesh becomes like clay, and you can mold it to turn into the perfect vessel of your psionic powers. So you get a dedicated spell list, like all of the spellcasters in the 2024 D&D 5e. You get a few cool organic weapons. Bone Blade, a blade made of bone, springs from your forearm or extends from your hand. This is a simple melee weapon with the finesse property and deals 1d8 piercing damage on a hit. You have advantage on the attack roll you make with the blade if at least one of your allies is within 5 feet of the target and the ally doesn't have the incapacitated condition. So for a spellcaster, an attack that does 1d8 piercing damage is nothing to laugh at. That's a solid attack, especially at level 3. And then being able to get advantage if an ally is within 5 feet is really nice for, once again, a spellcaster. It's not like um, the psionics are going to be front line fighters. Flesh Maul, your fist and forearm, coalesce into a hardened mass of flesh and bone. The Maul counts as a simple melee weapon and deals 1d10 bludgeoning damage, so really good also. A creature hit by the Maul has disadvantage on the next strength or constitution saving throw it makes before the start of its next turn. This is great if you have another person in the party that might be trying to set up a spell and you know that they're trying to set up a spell. And then Visceral Launcher, your hand and forearm transform into a crossbow made of muscle and sinew that fires bolts of bile. This counts as a simple ranged weapon with a normal range of 30 feet and a long range of 90 feet, deals 1d6 acid damage on a hit, and on each of your turns when you hit a creature with an attack roll using the launcher, you can deal an extra 1d6 acid damage to the target. At level 3, you can also extend your limbs using one of your psionic energy die for a minute. You can gain either 5 feet of reach, speed increase of 5 feet, Or when you cast a spell that has a range of touch and a casting time of an action, you can make the range of the spell 10 feet. At level 6, you get an extra attack, which is really good. This is a more melee psionic class or subclass, but it's still not like you're going to be beside the fighter and the barbarian. Your hit dice are not good enough for that. At level 6, you get quickened healing. When you cast Cure Wounds, you can expend 2 psionic energy dice to change the casting time to a bonus action for this casting, which is really good. When you do, you can roll 1 psionic energy die and add the number rolled to the total amount of hit points restored. Anything that restores more hit points is good in my book. At level 10, you get mutable form, so you can gain one of the following benefits for 10 minutes when you use extend limbs. So, Stony Epidermis, you have advantage on Constitution saving throws to maintain concentration. In addition, you can choose a damage type: acid, bludgeoning, cold, fire, lightning, piercing, poison, slashing, or thunder that you can gain resistance to for the duration. Superior Stride, when you aren't wearing armor, you can take the dash action as a bonus action. And you have a climb speed and swim speed equal to your speed, so that's really good also. Unnatural Flexibility, you gain a +2 bonus to AC, and your body, along with any equipment you're wearing or carrying, becomes pliable. You can move through any space as narrow as 1 inch, and you can spend 5 feet of movement to escape from non magical restraints or in the grappled condition. So, pretty much freedom of movement with a little bit of an AC boost, which is really good. And then level 14, you get life bending weapons. So when you hit a creature once per turn with your organic weapon, you can expend 1 psionic energy die and roll it. Each creature of your choice in a 10-foot emanation originating from you regains HP equal to the number rolled plus your intelligence modifier. By level 14, you should have a decent intelligence modifier. Additionally, 1 creature of your choice in that area takes necrotic damage equal to the number rolled. And then we have the Psi Warrior. So these, oh, Psi Warper. I'm sorry, Psi Warrior is already a thing. The Psi Warper. The Psi Warper can tune their psionic powers to manipulate the space between objects, so they can teleport across the battlefield and create vacuums in space, allowing them to never be in one place for too long. So you get your dedicated spell list at level 3. You can cast Misty Step at level 3 without expending a spell slot, and you must finish a long rest before you can cast it that way again. You can restore it by using 1 psionic energy die. No action required. At level 3, you also get Warp Propel. When a target fails its saving throw against your telekinetic propel, instead of pushing it, you can teleport the target to an unoccupied space you can see within 30 feet of you that is horizontal to you. That's really good. Now, it is really good for teleporting enemies away from somebody. So maybe somebody's taking too much damage. You try to telekinetic propel the enemy, you teleport the enemy 30 feet away from your ally. But it would also be good for getting your ally out of difficult situations. So maybe your ally is taking too much damage, and you know that they can't easily disengage. So just teleporting your ally away could save somebody's life. Or maybe get rid of the potential for a TPK. At level 6, you get Warp Space. When you cast Shatter, you can expend 1 psionic energy die to modify the spell, so that the radius of the spell's sphere becomes 20 feet. So that is really good. In addition, creatures that fail the saving throw against that spell are pulled straight toward the center of the sphere, ending in an unoccupied space as close to the center of the sphere as possible. So it kind of implodes, which is really cool. And then at level 6, you get Teleporter Combat. Immediately after you cast Misty Step, you can cast one of your Psion cantrips that has a casting time of an action as part of the bonus action. So that is really good, making Misty Step a lot better there. And it's a cantrip, so it doesn't take up a spell slot, which is great. At level 10, you get, I am probably going to butcher this word, duplicitous target. When a creature you can see makes an attack roll against you, you can take a reaction to expend one psionic energy die and choose a willing creature you can see within 30 feet of you that doesn't have the incapacitated condition. You and the willing creature teleport, swapping places with each other. The creature then becomes the target of the attack roll. So I think a key thing here is it says you and the willing creature. You can't do this with an enemy. So, like, let's say an enemy attacks you, you try to swap with one of their allies, it's not going to work. You have to swap with one of your allies, which means you need to swap with like the barbarian. Because if they're in a rage, they're going to take less damage anyways. And then at level 14, you get mass teleportation. So as a magic action, you can expend 4 psionic energy dice and choose huge or smaller creatures. Huge or smaller means pretty much anybody on the battlefield within 30 feet of yourself, up to a number of creatures equal to your intelligence modifier. Each of the chosen creatures is teleported to an unoccupied space you can see within 150 feet of you. An unwilling creature that succeeds on a wisdom saving throw against your spell save DC is unaffected. This could end a combat if done correctly. Let's say you're fighting a lot of minions. It's level 14. They're not a huge threat, but sometimes numbers can be the threat. So it's up to your intelligence modifier. So let's say you have like a +4. We're going to be gracious here. You are at level 14, so a +4. I'm not doing the math like I didn't do last video, but that's okay. Let's say you're fighting in a volcano, which does happen sometimes in D&D. And you just teleport those 4 creatures above the lava, that the combats might be over, depending on how many enemies there are. As long as they all fail your spell save DC, the combat could be potentially done. And then the third subclass, the Psykinetic. These guys can control their psionic powers like a malleable force. They bend their telekinetic energies into sturdy barriers and strike with the force of a battering ram. So once again, you get your dedicated spell list at level 3. You also get telekinetic techniques. When you use telekinetic propel, you can impose one of the following effects on the target. Boost, the target's speed increases by 10 feet until the start of your next turn. Disorient, the target can't make an opportunity attack until the start of its next turn. Or telekinetic bolt, if the target fails a saving throw, it takes force damage equal to the number rolled on the psionic energy die. At level 6, you get empowered attack mode. When your attack mode is active, you gain a fly speed of 60 feet and can hover. That is really good. And when you cast a Psion spell, you can add your intelligence modifier to 1 damage roll of that spell. Also really good. So that allows you to fly and cast spells from above, which is major in a fight. At level 6, you get empowered. At level 6, you get Rebounding Field. When you cast Shield in response to being hit by an attack roll and cause the triggering attack to miss, you can expend a psionic energy die to launch the force back at the attacker. The attacker makes a dex saving throw. Roll 2 psionic energy die on a failed save. The attacker takes force damage equal to the amount rolled, and you gain temporary HP equal to that amount. On a successful save, the attacker takes half as much damage. At level 10, you get enhanced telekinetic crush. So when you cast telekinetic crush, you can expend 1 psionic energy die to modify the spell, so that whether a creature fails or succeeds on that saving throw against the spell, the speed is halved until the start of your next turn. At level 14, you get heightened telekinesis. When you cast telekinesis, you can expend 4 psionic energy die to modify the spell so that it doesn't require concentration. That is major. If you do so, the spell's duration becomes 1 minute for that casting, and you can target gargantuan creatures and objects. That is insane. You're lifting some big enemies with telekinesis with this ability. And then the last subclass that we have is telepath. So telepaths are masters of mind magic. They use their psionic powers for all matters of the mind. whether they bolster the mental defenses of allies or probe the thoughts of others undetected. So you get your spells at level 3, obviously, your dedicated spell list. At level 3, you get Mind Infiltrator. When you cast Detect Thoughts, you can expend 2 Psionic Energy dice to modify the spell so that the spell doesn't require spell components or concentration. And the target doesn't know you're probing its mind if it fails its Wisdom saving throw, so that's really good. At level 3, you also get Telepathic Hub. You have telepathy with a range of 10 feet. When you expend a psionic energy die as part of using the telepathic connection to increase the range of your telepathy for the duration of the effect, you can simultaneously contact a number of creatures equal to 1 plus the number of rolled on the psionic energy die. So, this is what I was saying earlier. With telepath being a class, you can improve it with telepathic connection, but that 5 feet became 10 feet. Still not a huge boost, but still, I mean, it's a better range for your telepathy. And using a psionic energy die, you can just talk to more creatures at once, which is also really good. At level 6, you get empowered defense mode. When your defense mode is active, whether or whenever you're making a saving throw, you add 1d4 to the save. Pretty solid. In addition, while your defense mode is active, you can extend this benefit to creatures you are telepathically connected with using your telepathic connection. So, also really good. Level 6, you get Potent Thoughts. You can add your intelligence modifier to the damage you deal with any Scion cantrip. Solid. Because there's some decent cantrips that modifier will help out. And then at level 10, Telepathic Bolstering, you have telepathy up to 30 feet. So that's really good. I don't love that it takes until level 10 to get that. But I understand, like, you can't put it at level 6 because at level 3 it extends to 10 feet, but 30 feet doesn't seem incredibly good for level 10 when you are a telepathy based class. When you are a creature you can see within range of your telepathy fails an ability check or misses with an attack roll, you can take a reaction to expend 1 psionic energy die, roll the die, and add the number rolled to the d20, potentially turning that failed check into a success or a miss into a hit. The energy die is expended only if the check succeeds or the attack hits. And then at level 14, for the last ability, you get Scramble Minds. When you cast Confusion, you can expend 4 psionic energy dice to modify the spell so that the radius of the spell sphere becomes 30 feet. In addition, creatures under the effect of the spell roll 2d10s, and you choose which roll determines their behavior on their turns. So that's pretty solid. So I said I wasn't going to spend much time on the subclasses, and I spent way more time than I expected to. Back to the normal class features. At level 5, you can regain expended psionic energy dice when you finish a short rest equal to no more than half your number of dice rounded down. So if you spent like 4 dice, or if you have 4 dice, you can regain 2. Once you do this, you can do it again until you finish a long rest. You can't do it again until you finish a long rest. At level 7, you get Psionic Sword. When you roll initiative, you can expend 1 of your hit point dice and regain 1 expended use of psionic modes. In addition, after you roll or one or after you roll 1 or more psionic energy dice, you can expend 1 of your hit point dice and treat any roll of 1, 2, or 3 as a 4. At level 19, you can gain an epic boon or another feat of your choice for which you qualify. It's not super specific here, but it does give 2 recommendations. At level 20, once per turn, when you expend 1 psionic energy die and roll it for a psion feature of psionic or psionic discipline, you can expend 2 of your hit point dice to roll 2 additional psionic energy dice and add the numbers rolled to the total. It's crazy that there's a lot of abilities here that you can expend hit point dice for the psionic, because, or for the psion, because hit point dice might be pretty useful uh, to a spellcaster, but that's okay. There are all new psionic spell options in this Unearthed Arcana also. They are Intellect Fortress, Psychic Scream, Wallethim's Psychic Lance. I don't know who Wallethim is. Wallethim. Summon Astral Entity, Tasha's Mind Whip, Telekinetic Crush, and Telekinetic Fling. I don't know if Tasha needed another spell named after her. This is probably like the fourth or fifth Tasha spell, right? But I do like all of the new options. I think these are all solid spells. And Psychic Scream is such a solid level 9 spell. So I'm going to talk about that one for a second because I really like Psychic Scream. Has a range of 90 feet, only a somatic component, instantaneous duration. You unleash the power of your mind to blast the intellect of up to 10 creatures of your choice that you can see within range. That's a lot of creatures. Creatures that have an intelligence score of 2 or lower are unaffected. Each target must make an intelligence saving throw. That is a saving throw that I think a lot of people are going to fail. Intelligence is a pretty common dump stat. So unless you're facing off against like artificers or wizards, the intelligence might be low. On a failed save, a target takes 14d6 psychic damage. It has this stunned condition. 14d6 is a decent amount. Like, that is good. That's probably like, what, 42 for the average? I might be wrong there, but quick math, I think is 42. On a successful save, the target takes half as much damage, only if the target is reduced to 0 HP by this damage, its head explodes, assuming it has one. So, another thing I just glossed over. Stunning them after they take damage is incredible because then your allies on their turns can do extra attacks to mess this person up. The head exploding is insane because they can't be revivified at that point. They're just full dead. At the end of each of its turns, the stunned target repeats the save, ending the condition on itself on a success. This is a level 9 spell. Your spell save DC is going to be high. Intelligence is not normally a super high stat for a lot of enemies. This is incredibly good, in my opinion. The Unearthed Arcana also released 10 new feats that are all psionic themed. This pairs well with the new class, but it is also good for someone that doesn't want to be a full scion, but still wants to have some scion abilities. So we're not going to spend time talking about the feats because this video has already been long enough, but I hope you guys did enjoy this. That is everything for the scion. And this is a class I'm actually excited about. I have not had much of an urge to play wizard. I do like wizards, and there are wizard subclasses that I'm certainly curious about. I am curious about playing a necromancer, even though the 2024 edition hasn't released anything about it. And then I'm curious about like the illusionist and a couple of other wizard subclasses. But the Scion is probably the first intelligence based class that I'm actually excited about. I think all of the subclasses sound decent. The Metamorph sounds really fun for like a melee spellcaster. The Psy Warper is a really fun like teleporter that can teleport other people, which I think is super important in combat. The Psykinetic is incredibly good at moving crap. And the fact that you can throw a gargantuan creature at one point is insane to me. And then the Telepath is solid, but it's probably my least favorite of these classes. Just because I don't think it's as good as it could have been. And I hope they do some improvements as this is playtested. But talking about playtest, like I've said in my last 2 Unearthed Arcana videos, I probably won't get to playtest this. If you get to playtest this, please leave a comment about how that went. I'm curious about any flaws with the classes that I might have missed, or any strengths that I might have missed. So please leave a comment. If you guys did enjoy this video, please also leave a like. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this. Hit that notification bell to be notified when videos are released. And other than that, guys, I hope everybody is having an incredible day. And until next time, peace.